Dr. Donald Davidsen, former assemblyman, former commissioner of agriculture and markets, whole state of New York, with us again this week. We're going to be talking about a wide range of topics, all of which affect you and are pertinent. So, as we say in the old country, stay tuned.
It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Torres.
Dr. Davidsen, vet, politician, commissioner. Did I leave anything out?
No, I'd rather be a citizen's representative than a politician.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to insult you. All right, now, last week you were on the show, and we were talking about how fouled up and crooked Albany is, and that very day, NoJ got on the air and read the names of 30 members of the legislature who were under indictment, all but two of them being New York City area Democrats. Does that surprise you?
No, I've had the speakers of the assembly seen several of them disappear that way.
Well, you wanted to come back because you said we touched on a few topics, Don Davidsen. We touched on a few topics last week that you thought were, would make a show unto themselves. So take it away. Well,
what I would like to do, there are a lot of things that people are saying about Obamacare. And most of them, I think, are true, and I think it is certainly a bad bill. But there's a lot to be said that people don't know. Firstly, people think, well, this is a great thing because it's free health care. We have free health care. We have Medicaid. It is not only, it does have a copay, but nobody ever pays it, so it's truly free. It was so overused that they finally had to limit the number of times you could go to the hospital or to your doctor, because some people were visiting 2 or 3 times a week. So that's what free health care looks like, and if that's what you like, you could go on Medicaid. I had the privilege of visiting the British healthcare system.
That's what it was. We talked about that. Yes,
it's. They call the King's College Fund, and believe it or not, the CEO or the assistant CEO of it hosted us. His name is John Smith.
Yeah.
And he was very open, let us see and do whatever we wanted. Went with
Was this when you were in the Assembly?
This was when I was in the Assembly. Tarky Lombardi, a senator in Hudson, or in the Mohawk Valley, invited me to go, and a lot of physicians went too. And it gives you a little better outlook of what the healthcare system is in Britain. Firstly, your physician is assigned to you when you're born, and he is with you all his life, and probably yours. He makes house calls, and he sees you in the office, all free.
Sounds good so far.
Sounds
yeah.
good, yes. But you need your appendix out, or you have some other problem. Then you are suddenly switched to the hospital, and the hospital are doctors that maybe your doctor doesn't even know, and certainly you don't know. And they have complete control over you, whether or not you get in, whether you stay in, whether you get the surgery you want or need, and that could be serious to your health. There is another thing that you can. And this is different in Great Britain. Is you can pay your own physician and not be on the British healthcare system. In the event of that, then you can get seen right away in a hospital. And when you're done with that, you go back to your physician. And that ensures you, I think, a little longer life. But I talked to a person, and I think he was very he was very pleased with his healthcare system. He was a docent at the Cutty Sark Museum down in Greenwich.
He was a what now? I lost you there.
A docent. Well, he was caretaker at that. And I asked him how, as I had with a number of people, how do you like your health care? Oh, it's wonderful, wonderful. He said, I had one small problem, and that was I needed a heart bypass, and I had to wait 18 months. Now, you know and I know that most people here would be upset if they had to wait 18 hours.
Right. If you need one, you need one now.
You
right.
need it then. Mm-hmm. And I thought that that was really a problem. But there is an outlet in the British healthcare that the Canadians don't have. You can pay your own way, and you can get health care above what everyone else gets. It's a very interesting thing. They don't spend any money, on hospital space. They don't spend much money on equipment. They're always short of money. But so that's pretty much what the British system is. The other place I went was to Quebec City. It was a Eastern legislators conference there. They in the wintertime they went to Puerto Rico to meet, and in the summer they went to Quebec City to meet, which is pretty good deal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We went to see what Canadian healthcare is really all about, because people say, "Oh, the Canadians have it; it's wonderful, we fully paid, and so forth." It's not quite the way people think. Now, in the province of Quebec, Quebec City has one MRI. The other two are in Toronto. I would guess that in the Hornell area, they probably have more MRI machines than that. Mm-hmm. And so you're very limited to be able to get any care. And the other interesting thing was the cardiac intensive care room was open Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. And so you better be careful when you have your heart attack.
If you have your heart attack on Saturday morning, it's just tough luck?
Well, you can go to the hospital, but there's no service particularly for that. And the physicians who work for the Canadian healthcare are primarily all employees of the government.
Yeah. And well, that's what these guys really want.
Right.
That's what the Democrats. This is not a slam on the Democrat Party. That's what they want. That's what they've always wanted. And Obamacare is their big, giant step toward that. They want socialized medicine. They've never made any bones about that, going back to 1948. Hillary tried it and failed. This guy's put it through. Looks like it's going to be the law of the land, barring some kind of a political revolution among the people. So we're going to go the same way. That's what you're saying.
That's what people who. Well, the thing is, be careful what you ask for. You may get it.
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't mean to take you away from your plan there. Yeah.
Well, you talk to Canadians, and I see a lot. We go to Florida, and a lot of Canadians go down there. They own half of it, and they say, "Oh, the care is great. You know, if you've got in an accident, the ambulance would come right away, and they take you in the
big deal." Yeah,
but then they get you in the hospital, and you have to wait for things to happen, and sometimes you don't live long enough to get through the waiting period.
That could happen here, though, couldn't it?
Well, it's going to, because you're not going to have enough doctors. You're going to have a lot of hospitals that you can go to, and then another group that you can't go to. Mm-hmm.
Like the Mayo Clinic. You won't be able to go there.
It could be Rochester General or any one of them. And so that's going to immediately prevent you from getting the best care you can get. It may be free, or it may be cheap. It may not be cheap. There's a lot of problems with this. And the one thing that's interesting to me is that in both countries the income tax is 50%, and that's the pay.
That's free. Yeah, that's what. And they don't have to pay for this huge defense budget that we have to, because we're protecting them. I don't know how you can have both. Either you're going to have a defense program or you're going to have what is 1/6 of the economy? At 14, something like that, 14%?
Math is not my strong point.
Well, I know, but
it'd be less than 20.
Yeah.
Just less.
But that is a part of the economy that affects everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
And go ahead now. I know you had some other points you wanted to make. I didn't want to
Well,
interrupt you.
there are a lot of people who say that the Obamacare has a death panel. In other words, if you are almost dead, well, let them go. We're not going to treat them. Or it's something that is not very effectively treating. He's over 50, 60, or 70, whatever it would be. And they don't actually have that, I don't think. And they don't have it.
They do in England. They do in England.
They do, but they don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this gentleman who couldn't get a services for his heart bypass for a year or year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That they were waiting to see if he'd just die and be done with it. And I don't think that that's the kind of thing we want.
No, I don't want it.
Canada is actually worse because they have such a limited amount of equipment. They would love to change it back to something like we currently have, but they can't afford to do that because it's very difficult to turn things back. And that worries me because whether you can change Obamacare or get rid of it or improve on it, I have no idea except that it could be a real problem.
Well, listen, I don't mean to make this everything political, but doesn't it depend on what the people, how they vote next year?
I think so. Mm-hmm. I think that if both houses were to be a majority, a super majority, they would have the ability to
override the veto.
Veto. I earlier would think probably not, but I'm thinking today that Obama's people who agree with him are getting further and further down, and I don't think that he could overrun this because his numbers of people who like him are about 30%.
Well, they've caught him in lies. Bush took us into a war we probably shouldn't have been in. I don't think he lied. He was personally misled, or else his ideas were wrong. But Obama, they've caught in out and out lies, and there are more. Benghazi was a lie. They haven't nailed him on it yet, but you know it was a lie. We all know it was a lie. Congress will eventually prove it was a lie. He and Hillary lied like blazes. And the interesting thing is, why were they lying? What were they trying to cover up? So we'll be back with Don Davidsen in just a moment. Fred Voss has I think a good idea for your Christmas shopping list. The News Hawk Reports, the writings of a politically incorrect news bird. Well, as most of you know, Fred wrote a column for the local paper at one time, but the News Hawk, he charged on. A new blog called The Flip Side is posted every Sunday morning at newshawkreport.blogspot.com. It's also seen on Facebook. The new book by Fred Voss of Canisteo is a compilation of 96 similar blogs. Friends, I'm talking here about the News Hawk Reports, available on newshawkreports.com, from Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. News Hawk Reports. They're a delightful read by Fred Voss of Canisteo.
It's the Newsmaker Show on AM 1480 WLEA.
Dr. Don Davidsen is in the studio with us today. Dr. Davidsen, as you probably know, since he's from Canisteo, veterinarian. What was it they said on All Creatures Great and Small? You remember that series?
Oh, yes.
Veterinary.
Yes.
Yeah. A veterinarian and a citizen servant. That's the term you preferred. County legislature, state legislature, Commissioner of Agriculture and Markets. You've been out of all that for some years now.
Yes, 99.
All right, and he is a Republican, and, people can say, well, he's just pushing the Republican agenda. Well, I think now with Obamacare, people are waking up to where these Democrats, and my father was a Democrat. I was when I was younger. We now see where they want to lead us, and it's not a place I want to go. Maybe you do. I don't want to go there. And Obamacare is the best example. Now, you mentioned Medicaid, that's our equivalent of free medical care.
Yes.
We have another one, too, in the Southwest and in other states now in the United States other than the Southwest, where illegals come in and get free medical care.
Yes.
I don't even think they're on Medicaid. They just get it, right? You have to go to a city to see that, where there are a lot of illegals. One friend of mine had to take a friend of his up near Boston. He had to take him into an ER, and everyone in there except him and his friend were illegals. And he said, I wanted to stand up and say, all of you people who are illegal, get out of here now. I paid for this. All right. But the problem is with Medicaid, Doc, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of physicians are just not going to take it because they lose money on it.
Absolutely. It's not. It's a very low cost or product for the provider. The interesting thing about Medicaid, if you go to a hospital that takes federal money, you will see a sign saying, "We cannot turn you away."
And that's the way it should be. Yeah.
And so that everybody's saying, well, nobody had these people don't have any access to health care and
Not
so
true.
forth. If they go to a hospital that takes federal money, they can get taken care of. It may not be the best care. It may not spend a lot of time with them, but they will not turn them away. If they do, they're violating the law. And
I would think they probably do. I mean, most guys and women now, it's getting to be a woman's profession in medicine, physicians. I personally don't know any that would not care for someone just because they were getting it, quote, free, unquote. Do you? I'm sure there are some, but I don't know any. Do you?
Well, actually, the interesting thing is that many of these people come into the hospital, and the doctors, there's a group of doctors that kind of like to see these people because they can put a record together that they got this and they got that and got everything else. There's some of the hospitals that have financial difficulties, and one in Florida that I know intimately, since I was there to get a stent put in, they went through a whole battery of every machine they owned, the MRIs and everything they had. And then I found out they were not licensed to do invasive surgery, so they couldn't have put the stent in anyway. And so I had to transfer to a different hospital. The bill from the first hospital was $37,000.
Wow!
And they really didn't do anything to prevent me from dying. The other hospital was $17,000, and they did the surgery. So there are doctors who will just do everything they can to run the bill up, and that's how they survive with Medicaid.
A friend of mine in Buffalo, a physician, was telling me one time how the doctors in 1901 ran up the bill on McKinley. I mean, it was terrible. McKinley was shot in Buffalo. Right. They took him into, I don't know which hospital it was, but every guy in the area paid him a visit, and they submitted a bill to the government, But, hey, we're talking about fallen human nature. They cannot come up with a system that's going to eliminate all crooks and all charlatans. I don't care what they call it or which party proposes it. Would you agree with that?
Well, it's a two-way thing. Firstly, medicine is not understood very well by the patient. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know whether he needs these tests or not.
That's right.
Or she doesn't know.
Yeah.
In the bed next to me was a guy who had driven down from New York. He was probably 80 years old, and he threw up, and the kids put him all in the hospital. And they had every specialty that they had at that hospital,
yeah.
and they are working on him.
Been there, done that.
And he was what was wrong was he was tired, and he kept telling him, I want to go home. I want to go. Oh, no, you have to have this test.
Yeah.
You have to have that test.
Yeah.
You'll be here 2 or 3 days for.
Yeah.
And when they ran out of things to do, they'd send him home.
Yeah.
And one of the doctors that saw me sent me a bill for $10,000.
Yeah.
That would be covered by the insurance. But they hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
It was a ER nurse or doctor, and they just rushed up and started taking
Hey, look at him! There he is.
Yeah,
$10,000. Right.
And I kept saying to Medicare, "Don't pay this person because they didn't do anything."
Yeah.
Eventually, they asked them for the record, and they didn't have any.
Yeah.
So.
But you see, there are liberals, as you know, who believe that we can abolish original sin, that man's fallen nature can be somehow eliminated. Here's one of the dumbest comments I've ever heard in my life. Dennis Kucinich, who, take him or leave him any way you want to, but he's an honest guy. He'll tell you what he's really thinking. A former congressman from Ohio, from Cleveland. Dennis Kucinich said, I won't rest until we have profit-free medicine. Really? Oh, well, Doc, nice talking with you. Thanks for throwing some light on a very complicated, messy situation.
My pleasure, and I think that instead of going for Obamacare, what we should be doing is fixing and improving what we have now.
But that doesn't include a fallen nature. I don't care how many times the liberals try, they can't do it. Thank you so much. So much.